Folks, welcome to So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Wednesday episode. You have made it halfway through the week, so congratulations. I feel like I've released 8 episodes since Monday, so there's plenty to catch up on, but we have another great show for you today. This is a first in our show's history. We have Judge Rachel Juarez from the nationally syndicated show Hot Bench. Yeah, we have our first judge. She's a lawyer. She's brilliant. She's amazing. She's so funny. And this show has 2,000 episodes. It's syndicated across the country, but she was so game to talk about anything, and she's really up on pop culture. And at the same time, she's kind of this brilliant attorney. So, of course, I had to ask her about the Traitors. Of course, I had to ask her about Bravo. Of course, I had to ask her about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And we had this conversation last week right after Blake had filed her amended complaint answering back to Justin Baldoni's. And she was getting close to finishing it. But we have this really interesting conversation about where they go from here. So we're dipping our toe lightly into the Lively-Baldoni. It's not the entire episode, so don't worry. But I thought she was fantastic. In fact, I texted Sandra afterwards and I was like, God, I can't wait to talk to her again. She's fantastic. So hopefully she'll come on again. Now, I have tried to clear my mind of Lively-Baldoni for this last couple of weeks, even though I read everything, but on the show. And then I was like, okay, where are we? And so I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, what are the updates on the Lively-Baldoni case? And ChatGPT, we got to put it into this AI stuff, folks, because it spit out so many articles about Lively and Baldoni immediately where I was like, this is dangerous. In the wrong hands. This is very dangerous. So ChatGPT tells us as of February 25th, the legal dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni continues to intensify with several recent developments. My God, I wish ChatGPT was like, really, bro? There's better things going on in the world that you could talk about, but I guess we'll talk about this. So the first article they give us is this. This is where it's like maybe we're paying too close attention to this case. This is from a Page 6 article. Eagle-eyed Blake Lively fan spots almost identical scenes in It Ends With Us and Green Lantern amid Justin Baldoni battle. Now remember, Blake Lively acted with Ryan Reynolds in the Warner Brothers film Green Lantern, which was a box office bomb. How long ago? This was 2010 this movie came out. And there are very, I guess, identical dancing scenes in this movie, which I'm like, okay, yeah, like there's only a couple of ways how you're going to shoot a dancing scene. But I like that there's, the Page 6 says, this eagle-eyed fan shared a rather compelling theory after noticing the striking similarities. In the clip, Lively and Baldoni slow danced in a bar while extras watched and cheered for a game in the background. Both actors were caught engaging in small talk on their mics, even bringing up their respective spouses, Reynolds and Emily Baldoni. Nonetheless, Lively's legal team asserted that the video itself is damning and corroborates the actress's allegations. Now, in the superhero movie, Ryan Reynolds' character Hal Jordan and Blake Lively's character Carol Ferris share an intimate dance as they fall in love, which is very similar to the one in It Ends With Us. One movie watcher took to Twitter to point out the similarities, writing, quote, I noticed about 30 minutes into Green Lantern, there's a scene where Lively and Reynolds' characters dance in a bar in an almost identical way to the slow dance from It Ends With Us. The only difference is the characters were talking. Could it be possible that Lively was trying to recreate the scene to be similar to the scene she did with her husband when she fell in love with him? Did she rewrite the scene to mirror the details of the dance? Is this what she means when she says her husband is all over this movie? Others echoed the viewer's observations, with one person noting, wow, that would definitely explain why she thought talking during the dance sequence would be more romantic. Quote, she may have even subconsciously remembered the moment she fell in love with her husband, and that's why she was so insistent on the talking. Guys, throw social media away. Just throw it in the garbage. Are you kidding? First off, why are you going back to watch Green Lantern? That's my first question. Secondly, oh my God. And please, I bet there's listeners out there right now going, you know what? This person has an excellent point. However, others pointed out that simply because the scenes were nearly identical does not mean Lively could not feel uncomfortable around Baldoni. Quote, who gives a F? She was sexually harassed on that F-ass film, It Ends With Us. And she wasn't the only one. Hope that helps. Because remember, in her alleged complaint, she brings up 2 other people that felt uncomfortable. And me and Miss Juarez talk about the word uncomfortable in our interview because it's such an interesting word to put in the document. So that was one story that is burning bright in the Lively-Baldoni mess. Now, we're joking about this, but obviously a very serious case. What else do we have? Legal proceedings and protective orders. On February 20th, Lively's legal team filed a motion seeking to classify certain sensitive information as attorney's eyes only, aiming to protect involved parties from potential threats and witness intimidation, that's what they were scared of in the Diddy trial, which me and Rachel talk about the Diddy trial as well, because he has a history of intimidating witnesses. But they're saying we want this private because we're worried about witness intimidation, including the 2 women potentially coming forward. Now, Baldoni's attorneys have challenged this motion, arguing that Lively is attempting to suppress evidence, especially given her prior public disclosure of the accusations. Both parties have reported receiving threats related to the case, which is scheduled for trial in March 2026. Now, I do not doubt that both parties, Lively and Baldoni, have gotten death threats. I feel that is the insanity of all of this, is this parasocial relationship we have with these people. Like a lot of people are super heated, and then they take that to such an intense, 2 wrongs don't make a right. In fact, 2 wrongs make that movie Green Lantern. Here's another article, changes in professional collaborations. In a related development, Ryan Reynolds' Aviation Gin, Ryan has his own gin company, will not appear in the upcoming sequel to A Simple Favor, which is Blake Lively's new movie that is premiering at South by Southwest, I think in March. It's titled Another Simple Favor. So I guess Aviation Gin was supposed to appear in the movie, and now they are taking that gin out of it. And Paul Feig, the director, who's a brilliant director, he did Bridesmaids, he did Freaks and Geeks, but Paul Feig has his own gin. Artingstall's Brilliant London Dry Gin will now be featured. So, good. This has even made its way to the gin companies, you guys. Social media dynamics. I found this interesting. The ongoing feud has also impacted the actor's social media followings. Get this. Since September, Lively has lost over 864,000 followers, while Baldoni has gained more than 230,000 followers, with significant shifts occurring after his lawsuit filings. I thought that was really, really interesting. Now, there was a Hollywood Reporter issue that came out this past week, which had this depicted Blake Lively attacking Baldoni with a slingshot. And Lively has criticized this cover, labeling it sexist and extremely offensive. The accompanying article suggested that Baldoni's Baha'i faith might have led to cultural misunderstandings on set, a notion Lively's representatives dispute, emphasizing documented instances of harassment. But she is saying this cover took it too far. Also, still people are up in arms with the SNL 50 appearance that Blake Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds did. People are still upset about that appearance. Now, in legal filings and allegations, there is a defamation lawsuit by a crisis specialist, Jed Wallace, who we first learned this man's name in Blake Lively's December filing and the New York Times article. He's a Texas-based crisis communication specialist. He filed a $7 million defamation lawsuit against Lively. Jed Wallace claims he was wrongfully implicated in Lively's legal actions against Baldoni, asserting he had no involvement in any campaign to harm her reputation. So he was brought up as being one of the masterminds of this alleged smear campaign. He's saying this is not him at all, and he wants $7 million. So far, Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios, they want $400 million. Jed wants $7 million. This is a lot of money. Now, there's a publicist legal maneuvering happening as well. Leslie Sloan, who is the publicist for Lively and Reynolds, has requested to be removed from Baldoni's $400 million defamation countersuit. Leslie Sloan contends that the allegations against her are baseless and that she should not be a party to the ongoing legal proceedings. Now, this is going to be interesting because she is directly named She's directly named in the reporting, the lawsuit, all of this stuff. And she is like, no, you cannot, I do not want to be involved in this. Now, there was a quote attributed to Leslie Sloan saying, quote, Blake was sexually assaulted. And Sloan argues that this remark, whether or not she uttered those exact words, is too vague to be defamatory. I don't think it's that vague. I think that's I think that's pretty specific. Instead, she says it's just an opinion or substantially true. It's a head scratcher. The Puck reports to argue that a sexual assault accusation is too nebulous to be defamatory, but also, by the way, happens to be true. Even more dubious is Sloan's assertion that Baldoni's failure to explicitly deny engaging in non-consensual sexual contact with Lively somehow confirms that it happened. This reporter says, I wouldn't bet your child's tuition on Judge Louis Lyman, who is the judge on this case, accepting that as grounds to toss Baldoni's defamation suit. So this will be interesting. We've got a long road ahead of us. By the way, the article I was just reading is from The Puck by Eric Gardner. And it's weird because you read these papers, right? And like this article even starts off with, talking about the Baldoni complaint, the 224-page complaint that Brian Friedman, Baldoni's attorney, lodged a few weeks ago. And he describes it as, what was the verbiage he was describing it as? He said, hold on one second, I just lost the quote. Oh, here it is. He said, the often baffling 224-page complaint. But he doesn't go on to say why he considers it often baffling. Now, I've read that complaint. I mean, it's baffling in the sense that this many emails and texts are actually released to the public, but I want to know why this reporter thinks it is often baffling. And I think that's the thing. When you get into the weeds on these cases, you are picking apart everything, and you don't know if somebody is trying to sway your opinion, because often baffling seems kind of somewhat negative. And are they trying to sway how people feel? I don't know. That's something I always think about when I'm reading reports these days. So the Leslie Sloan thing, that is yet to be determined. Obviously, these legal documents have gone officially viral over the last month. And that is a quick update on Baldoni Lively, even though there is so much more. But we've got lives to lead, right? And we've got a great guest today that I think you're going to laugh with. I think she's going to actually enlighten a lot of us about this case and a bunch of cases. So without further ado, here is our guest. Have a great Wednesday. Come back on Thursday for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and we'll finish out the week strong with Summer House and the Traitors. Have a great day, guys. Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Today, this is a really exciting day. We've never had a judge, or at least a television judge, on with us. And today we finally have one. You guys know this show, Hot Bench. It is one of the top 10 first-run shows in all of syndication. It was created by Judge Judy Scheinlin. We all love Judge Judy. It just had its 11th season premiere, over 2,000 episodes. And we are so lucky today to have one of the 3 panels of judges on this show, Judge Rachel Juarez. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.
Listen, I was going over your resume, which is so extensive, and I was trying to figure out how you went from Stanford Law School, Yale University, Stanford Law School, you're practicing family law, you're doing all of these things. How do you wind up on television?
Yeah, wild story. So I never had any interest in going on TV, wasn't looking for it.
By the way, that's good. That's what we want. We want people that don't want to be on TV. Yes.
Right. And I was born and raised in LA. So I was around all of this, no interest at all. But one of my divorce clients, heard from a friend that they were looking for new judges on Hot Bench. And he said, you should call my divorce lawyer. She'd be like a riot on your show.
You should call my divorce lawyer. Exactly. She gave me a really good divorce. She's very entertaining.
We just finished his divorce. But best endorsement, right? And they called me, and I had just had a baby. So I said, can I call you back in a couple months? And they said, no, you can try out tomorrow or not. So I said, okay. So I got on Zoom and we did a bunch of Zoom chemistry tests. And a month later, the rest is history.
Wait, so how do you audition to be a judge? What are those chemistry tests? Are they, because obviously these are small claim court kind of like things that people apply to have this panel of judges deliberate on. What do those practice sessions or that audition look like? Do they have people just doing fake cases?
Yeah. So we basically mock real cases. But they have the producers be the litigants so that they're okay doing it over and over again. But they take a real case from the show and they have the producers act as those litigants. And we do it over and over again with different combinations of judges, with different answers from the litigants. And we did that a number of different times in sort of different combinations of people.
And do you like being on television now? I know it's not something you wanted.
Yeah. So I always tell people that if Hot Bench wasn't ever put on TV, I would like it a little more, right? If I just got to go there and nobody ever saw it. But I love the job. I love doing it. And I don't mind being on TV, I guess is how I put it.
No, you're great at it. The thing I was curious though, is that has this affected your passion for the law at all? Is like television added to your passion, or has it been it makes me question certain things?
Oh no, I love it much more than my regular job. I'm in my regular office right now.
Yeah, by the way, you guys, if you don't see this, if you're just listening, she's a real lawyer. She's got paperwork, she's got a printer, the whole deal.
Oh yeah, fax machine. Who has a fax machine anymore?
Yeah, you got a little statue of the justice, the scales of justice.
I have my Hot Bench gavel, the memorial one they gave me. Yeah, so I really like it more than divorce is hard. Family law is really hard.
Yeah.
And I love what we do at Hot Bench. And I sort of love the combination of entertainment, but also education. Because I think that especially these days with all these big court cases going on, it's kind of a mystery to people how the court system works. And I love kind of giving them a little bit of glimpse into that and to sort of see, we take it very seriously. They're all real cases, as you know, and to kind of get to see a little bit of what we do.
Are you going to be able to audition for the Supreme Court at any point?
My chemistry test with them is next week.
Good luck.
But it's funny you say that because I think if you had asked the people in my life 10 years ago, is she more likely to be on the Supreme Court or on TV? They would all have said Supreme Court. They would have been an unanimous answer.
Man, all the people they think are meant for TV wind up on the Supreme Court, I bet.
Right? Exactly.
What is the craziest experience you've had on Hot Bench so far, or the craziest case, in your opinion?
Craziest case easily was a $5 coffee case. So a guy went in and ordered a cup of coffee. It was not served promptly. He also claims they were rude, but he literally sued for a return of his $5 and just wait, and for the $95 in gas he spent continually driving back and forth to demand his refund. Yeah. He got his $5 back, but because my colleagues gave it to him, I said, no way, no how, under no circumstance am I giving this gentleman $5. But the other two judges said, well, he is entitled to the $5. And so they gave it.
How hard is it to not laugh during certain things that are being argued?
Oh, we laughed during that one. I think that probably even made air. It's harder when it's not so obviously silly. I think probably the sort of most out of this world case we had was a case with a guy who was staying in a friend's trailer because he was homeless and she had lent him her trailer to stay in. And he decided one day, I'm going to take it for a ride. No permission to do that. And he crashed it 5 minutes after driving because the hitch was broken. He sued her for inducing him to drive a trailer without warning him that the hitch was broken. And that one was really hard because the woman didn't understand the fact that she was suing her friend was insane. And it's really hard in those situations. You don't want to laugh at people. You don't want to make them feel terrible, but you also want them to know how ridiculous this is.
Yeah. That's so important to actually also not abuse the court system or even the TV court system.
Exactly. And, because all of our cases are real, they had to abuse the real court system before they abused us, right?
It's wild.
So, it's nobody, it's all of these people actually went to small claims court and filed a case, and then that's where we get them from. So
Well, I mean, I grew up in an age of like the People's Court, which I think then led to Judge Judy, who blew it out of the water.
oh,
My grandma, rest in peace, literally her favorite show was watching Judge Judy. I mean, just so passionate. And, she really just became this megastar. And then we have you guys, 2,000 episodes, which there's only a handful of shows in the television arena that has hit that mark. What do you think people are fascinated with when they tune into these types of shows?
I mean, I think it's the fact that it really is reality television, but it's even more real than reality, because these are real people's disputes. And these are disputes that people can relate to, right? Like my landlord wouldn't fix, the nest of ants in my apartment either. Or I bought a lemon car from a guy who then disappeared too. And so I think it's partially the sort of, they can relate to it. I think some people like to learn. We get comments all the time about, and we get people on our show. One of the coolest things we get is when people say, I've been watching your show for 5 years, so I have all my evidence and I put everything in writing and I have a contract, because I learned it from you.
That's amazing.
It's wonderful. And then I think some people tune in for like I love to see people dress down in court, and I love to see, the drama and, people getting yelled at and the conflict. That's clearly part of the appeal.
I've been doing this show now for I think 5 years, and we have a heavy reality show fandom, and we talk a lot about a reality television. And it is funny what I've noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this, is that through shows like on Bravo, there's been so many court cases, Erica Girardi and Tom Girardi's divorce, or not divorce, but all of the stuff going on with Tom Girardi, that the Bravo audience, all of a sudden, we think we're lawyers all of a sudden. We think we know how to litigate cases, and you see that through the progression of pop culture with P. Diddy, Baldoni, Lively. Have you noticed that as well, is that there is so much more of an interest, and also people think they know the court system now?
Yes, so much more of an interest and so many more legal opinions floating out there. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I see someone offering an opinion and I think, God, is that a lawyer? No, it's just somebody on Reddit who's just saying, no, this is an improper blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what? So yes, I think, and I really think that two things contributed to that. I think the true crime kind of explosion, right? When everybody became interested in true crime. And I think Amber Heard and Johnny Depp too. Because, I would never have expected people to actually watch that trial, because trials are boring, right? They really are. There's 5 minutes of interesting stuff, but people were fascinated by it, just like they were by the OJ trial. And
yeah, which we shouldn't be shocked by, because here's one of the world's biggest movie stars at a certain point. So people were getting to watch this supposedly unfiltered look, and you're getting to hear text messages and emails, and we are such a voyeuristic society now more than ever. So it was huge. It went off like gangbusters.
Yeah. And I think that really kind of opened the floodgates to people caring about these lawsuits, whereas they might not have otherwise followed the filing of a complaint and the service of discovery and all that stuff. And then I think it's partially the true crime kind of fascination too.
Yeah, I always say true crime, when that became pop culture, it was like all bets are off, and we also get desensitized to these really serious issues, and that's why your show is great, because it's like small claims. It's like, it's not murder. It is not like the smaller issues are a more fascinating way to learn about the legal system, I would argue. Do you think it was a mistake for the Depp trial to be televised in the first place?
No, I don't.
No.
I wouldn't. I understand why they don't televise a lot of things. I would encourage more to be televised, more to be broadcast, especially in light of what's happened with politics lately. Because I think there's a lot of people that either believe or purport to believe that the justice system is rigged. It's all BS. It's all, the judge is being paid off by the lawyers. And I think if there were more places that said, we're going to broadcast this, month-long trial and let you see every boring thing that happens in between the exciting things, it might help. I don't know, kind of.
I would hope so, because I want to believe in the systems that we have in place. I want to believe in these, and I want them to continue. I don't want there to be constitutional crises. I want everybody to be able to do what they're supposed to do. But it's got to be interesting for you, having done this for so long and having an appreciation for law. Are there things that you get scared about that you see coming down the pike?
What do you mean scared about? Like,
Well, it's just like, do you feel that the systems that we have set up with the court system and the judicial system, they're strong enough to hold whatever's coming our way?
I don't know. I think that up until about a month ago, I won't say what event changed a month ago, right?
Just guess, you guys. Yeah.
Just around January 20th. I think a lot of things changed, and I think we've seen over the last month that this is going to be different than the 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real concern with what's going on right now, that if you have an executive branch that is just going to say, I'm not listening to the courts, Supreme Court says this, I don't care. Judge orders me to do this, I don't care. There's a real serious concern with, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do about that? I mean, the Supreme Court can issue an order. They can't like walk over and like make him give, and he controls a lot of the bodies that would be forcing him to do things. So it's wild. I don't know.
And also the general public doesn't truly, I mean, we understand these things of like, I read the 400-page Baldoni complaint, but they don't understand the day-to-day and how scary this could potentially be. So it's something to really pay attention to, because we want these systems that every other country in the world kind of admire to a degree. We want they to stay in place. I was wondering what made you fall in love with the law in the first place? Why did you start, you went to Yale, Stanford. Did you always know that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah. Like I was like 6 years old. People thought it was very weird that I was like, I want to be an attorney when I grow up, What
were you watching, like LA Law at like 6 years old or something?
No, so both my parents were lawyers, and I thought it was really cool. I'd been to court with them a couple of times. But I really liked the performance aspect of it. I really liked the concept that you would get up. I wanted to be a trial lawyer, which is what I became. And that you would try to convince, 12 people by putting together a story and arguments of kind of your worldview, right? That you had to kind of construct an entire argument to make them believe that your entire story is true. Not convince them of like a very small point, but like try to just kind of shade the entire story, not in a negative way, in a good way, to sort of persuade people of something. I thought it was really fascinating. And that's what I did.
Do you have nerves of steel at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I don't get nervous anymore, but that's because I think I've done it so many times, and now I speak in public so much that it's kind of like another day, kind of like the same way you wouldn't get nervous when you do a podcast.
Yeah, no, it's like that Malcolm Gladwell, that 10,000 hours kind of thing of like being able to do
10,000 hours. Yeah.
Oh, I would hope. I mean, like 10,000 hours on Hot Bench alone eventually. My gosh.
Yeah, we'll get there pretty soon, I think. Yeah.
So, I mean, and also I did read, I know you love pop culture, and I mean, first off, if you have this intense job, you're in family law, divorce, all of these kind of really stressful things. Did you also grow up loving pop culture and like loving TV, movies, music?
Reality TV, yes.
So what reality TV did you grow up loving?
I only love the competition shows. I can't watch people live, right? Bravo people would hate me because I think watching people live their lives is very boring. But you create a competition show and I am there for it. So like Survivor was when I was 18.
First season of Survivor blew me away.
Oh my God. And my family watched it together. I was in high school. I was 16, 17, 18. And that was kind of like the start, And so if there is a competition-based reality show or a dating one, like I like Love is Blind, as long
which is kind of a competition reality show if you think about it. Yeah.
That's why I like it. I hate to say that because I know that's not their mantra, but as long as there's something like moving things forward that is not just people being themselves or that kind of thing, I will watch it.
Do you watch The Traitors by any chance?
Of course, it's my favorite show right now.
I got to get your take on Tom Sandoval. You don't watch Bravo, so what is I always like to ask this question of people that don't watch Vanderpump Rules. How do you view Tom Sandoval, and were you aware of Scandoval?
I was, and I actually did see the reunion for Vanderpump Rules, where the whole Scandoval thing broke up because I thought
that's how powerful this was, that you actually watched a show that you never watched before.
Exactly. I had literally never seen the show before. I have some friends who love it, but I was so fascinated by the Scandoval stuff that I actually watched that reunion show, having watched nothing else on that show. So that did color my view of him. But he comes off very, I think, well on the show.
Well, let's not say well. I mean, he's sweating through his sweatshirts. He's singing into a like he comes off very
he doesn't
funny.
come off as a nefarious individual. He comes off more as kind of like a like pathetic puppy, I feel like, not somebody who's like concocted this multi-year plan to, destroy the person he's been in a relationship with for 6 years by sleeping with her best friend. I mean, he comes off more as kind of like a sad little pathetic puppy, I think.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Is there anybody in the Traitors that you're rooting for? Me personally, I'm rooting for the traitor Carolyn because I watched that season of Survivor with her and I loved her on that. Who are you rooting for watching this season?
Oh God, I don't know. I was really rooting for Wes and Derek, like to sort of get the best of Boston Rob because I thought he was doing such a terrible job. He was being
You thought Boston Rob was doing terrible?
Yes. When he said, I'm 100% sure that this guy is a traitor and it came out of nowhere and then he's a traitor. Like,
but they all bought it. Like he's done this so many times and he's able to do it with a straight face and they all buy it.
He's amazing in terms of his charisma and ability to persuade people. But I just think if I was there, oh my God, no way he would convince. I thought he was doing a terrible job, a great job of selling people, but that his approach was off. So I was really hoping, especially Derek would kind of, because I love Derek, would kind of.
They were close, man. Derek, if they had lasted another week, Wes. Yeah, I think so. And we need like a 12 angry moment, 12 angry men moment in the Traitors where one person says, I don't buy it, and then convinces the rest of the people that Rob is a traitor. Like we need those moments still.
Right. And I don't know who's left for the rest of the 12 angry men moments. That's kind of my concern with the remaining faithful.
But that's why I argue that it's kind of turned into a comedy and one of the best comedies out there. Like I look forward to watching it every week, but the gameplay of it is not as intense as Survivor, Big Brother, even Deal or No Deal Island, which is actually a decent show that has a little bit more gameplay in it than the Traitors, but Traitors is just so well produced.
Oh, it's so well produced. And I think there are things that's actually interesting. So the game that they're playing on the Traitors, people play in real life, like not in a, right? I play that game when we go away every summer. We go the same place with all of our like family friends and we play that game. And it is like the most intense 5 hours of the year, when we play that game. I mean,
do you win every time?
No, I always win the first game and then I'm immediately killed the second game. It happens every year. People like forget that I do a really good job of it. And I do really well the first game and then somebody kicks me out immediately.
What's your strategy?
So, I mean, it depends on whether so we call it mafia, right?
Yeah.
So you're either mafia or villagers, right? So I think the strategy, if you're mafia, if you're a traitor, is you're always the second person to jump on a bandwagon, not the first, because that person attracts so much attention, right? Like Boston Rob.
Yep.
But if you're always the second person to jump on the bandwagon of getting someone out, you look like you're doing the right things, but you're only going with where the tide's already going, right? And you're not going to stand out as the person who somehow figured out who all the other mafia members were. As a villager, as a faithful, it's hard. You just kind of have to try to figure it out,
Yeah. That's the thing, though, with all these shows, we all kind of sit there at home and think about how we would play it and, how we would do it. And it really is a mixture of like smarts and luck and, just going against the grain when you really believe it, but doing it in such a way, which I think it lines up with the law in so many ways and being able to argue a case to a degree.
And determining whether people are telling the truth. But that's, my big complaint about the Traitors is that there's nothing that they incorporate into the show to help you figure out who's a traitor. There's not like a challenge that the Traitors are supposed to sabotage or something they have to do that might expose them. They just get to exist in the house.
The closest they do is they have to murder in plain sight, where they have to put something in like a wine glass one season, but that's not that difficult. Yeah,
and it's once or twice. I mean, the closest they came this season was that they all had to go into that secret room.
Which is so dumb that they all. Yeah, I know. No, they were able to like Gabby just totally bought their excuse. It was so ridiculous.
I know.
So the Traitors is on the fun end of this pop culture spectrum, but I wanted to ask you about a couple of the cases out there and, obviously not as fun. And I would start with the Puff Daddy or P Diddy of it all. And I've been, this has been a boon for docuseries everywhere because every major streaming platform has a P. Diddy docuseries. But, going over this case, and I'm not a lawyer, I do not have a legal mind, but to me, the thing that stands out is there's a pattern of behavior that's been exhibited by this man for, over 3 decades. And it seems like a fairly consistent pattern of behavior. And it's been he's beaten a lot of cases in the past, and now it is finally kind of time's up. But at the same time, I don't know the legal system enough to be he's got to have the best legal representation out there. So is there a possibility that this man will walk free?
No, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see a possibility. And you nailed it. I mean, that's the difference, is it's a pattern. And they've deliberately charged it as a RICO case, a racketeering case, which is usually what they do for the mob, right? It's so you can get everything that the mob does under the illegal heading, right? But this is the same kind of thing. It really is like a criminal organization, what he's doing. But that allows them to put all of this evidence together, as opposed to having to isolate individual cases. I don't see how you convince anyone that 40 women consented or 10 women consented. It's one thing if it's one-on-one to say, no, this woman consented. It's, they shouldn't succeed in that argument if it is not true, but it's a little bit easier to persuade someone. He's Puff Daddy, right? She did what he wanted to. He's a star, and she was a young, vulnerable woman, but it wasn't a crime.
Or a man. There are men coming forward with accusations against him as well. So it's really, and then to see how many court cases that he's beat over the years, are they able to argue that in court as well? This is going to go in front of a jury, right?
Yeah, so probably not the prior court cases because those have been adjudicated already, but they're going to put in a lot of stuff. There's going to be a lot of things that are not necessarily a charged offense in this case to try to prove the racketeering part of it, that it's a criminal organization. And that's I think they did that obviously to give them a good way to argue that they should be allowed to put in evidence that's not directly relevant to the individual crimes, but that helps to provide context.
And this is the Southern District of New York, I believe, right? Which is, they're pretty reputable. They know their stuff. They don't usually take on cases that they can't win. So, and they've denied his bail now so many times, which of course he's a flight risk. How would you never argue that he's a flight risk?
And he's intimidating witnesses from jail.
Yes, he's done it. But he's also done it in his past cases. People have come forward.
Right. And he's managing to do it from jail. You're going to let him out to do it? It was ridiculous. And yes, the Southern District of New York is widely regarded as the best district court in the country. It's the most competitive place to become a prosecutor. It's top-notch lawyers, just as good as private attorneys. These are people who want to be federal prosecutors because that's their passion. They're going to be fantastic lawyers. It's a great place to try them. And I'm so excited.
But I'll tell you what those Southern District lawyers are not. They're not on hot bench. I'll tell you that much.
They're
not on hot bench.
I don't think they'd let them do that for some reason. I don't know, just me.
By the way, you never know. In 4 years, it might be to that point where we're that's how crazy things have gotten, where we started adjudicating on primetime television.
Oh yeah, there may be Trump bench. That's what I'm thinking. And he's just going to appoint himself judge.
Yes.
And there we go. We're going to start.
You say this now, but I'm going to have to pull this clip in 3 years and say this actually happened.
Like the Simpsons, when they predicted he was going to be president.
Exactly.
Record this, set it aside when we have Trump bench, and I called it.
Yeah. So P. Diddy, also I wanted to point out too is, he is so famous, obviously. Most of the world knows P. Diddy of some nature. So I would imagine that jury, it's so hard to get people that have not heard of Diddy or have an opinion of Diddy. And also this, the Brian Kohberger trial, which is the Idaho murders. He's not a celebrity, but so many people knew about the Idaho murders that they were arguing for change of venue because too many people already had opinions about this case in this small town. How hard is it these days with TikTok and social media to actually get a jury that can be reputable?
Yeah. So for most cases, very easy. For these big cases, and there's probably 10 or 20 of them a year across the entire country. But for those cases, it is very hard. It's because you have not only people that have information that you have to weed out, but people who don't want to tell you that they have information because they want to be on this big famous case jury. So you really have to work hard to not only kick off the people who say like, oh yeah, I saw the Diddy documentary, he's totally guilty. I mean, that's easy, right? You just get rid of that person. But the people who are like inside are thinking, I love Diddy. I want to make sure he doesn't go to jail. But I'm not going to tell them I know who Diddy is. I'm going to say, oh yeah, isn't he a rapper guy? You've got to go beyond the first and second level to like really root out. And even, for Kohberger, that was one of the arguments when they were arguing the change of venue motion. I would have argued it's not going to help to move them over a little bit in Idaho. Everyone's still going to know about this case. I understand why they did it, right? Mostly to protect against an appeal that the venue shouldn't have been changed or should have been changed if it wasn't. But I think with TikTok and, as you point out, social media and even just streaming services, moving it from one county in Idaho to the other county is really not going to help much.
Well, this is what confuses me about these cases, though, is, the Kohberger stuff. I actually paid attention to that. I thought it was like a horrific crime. And it was that one that was just so creepy and mysterious. But it seemed like, man, this kid was shutting off his phone in that cell phone area, like the cell phone area. There was all of these things. And then they're saying, or at least, legal experts on TikTok that are not legal experts, they're saying that he can get off because of DNA evidence, because there's a drop of blood that's potentially another man's drop of blood, and that he could potentially get off, when I'm like, it's Occam's razor. This is the guy. I mean, like, I can say that because I'm not in the legal system, but to me, this is the guy.
Yeah, there's no way he doesn't get convicted. I mean, knock on, right? There's no way. I mean, I don't see this. I didn't even know there was a drop of someone else's blood. I know they have his DNA at the scene. I know they're trying to get rid of it, which they won't. The arguments to get rid of it are terrible. And he's shutting it on and on. I mean, how?
Yeah, there were just so many things. And also, he was like studying criminal behavior. Like, he was in criminology classes, which means he had a mind for this stuff as well. So to me, I'm like, you don't have a bigger slam dunk than this guy.
Yeah. And sending people emails like, how does it feel to commit a crime? Like, will you tell us? Like, oh my God, that was his like study in his criminal justice program. And then he took off, evidence of flight, right? He took off with his dad.
Yes.
I mean,
and he thought he was being, and then he got caught with like plastic gloves, taking trash out. Like, he would take trash out with plastic gloves. Like, even the family was like, yeah, he was just wearing plastic gloves, like just every day, which they just thought, that's just Brian. Like, so weird.
I don't see. I think the toughest thing they're going to have in that case is motive. But there's so much going on behind the scenes in that case. The judge has said so much of it cannot be publicized that I don't think we really know necessarily everything that's going to come out.
Well, they won't let that one be televised, I heard.
Right. That's what we think. Yeah. Right. So I think they're going to have trouble proving motive. Why would you do this? Because being a criminal justice student isn't a great motive to commit a crime like this. But my guess is they'll find something. And they may have already found it, that he was stalking one of the women, that he had asked one of the women out and she rebuffed him. My guess is they will find something. And as long as they have some type of motive, I think it's a slam dunk.
Yeah. I just feel like that motive thing too is also like, I don't know. I sometimes feel like killers, if they're insane, don't need motive. Like, he could have just seen somebody at a restaurant and got obsessed with this person and then just started studying them. But like, obviously motive is such a huge factor when you're prosecuting somebody. Finally, do you have 10 more minutes? Are you still good on time? I wanted to talk about the case that's making everybody talk, Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Which we just got Blake Lively's amended complaint. She released it at like 11:59 p.m. last night. And, there are a couple of new things, still a lot of the same information in regards to smear campaign. She also talks about two other people on set being made to feel uncomfortable by Justin Baldoni. Now, I'm somebody that did like a 4-hour show on Baldoni's website. I did the Blake Lively's initial complaint and the New York Times article. So I was really not looking forward to this, but I was very interested to see the amended complaint. What is your take on this case thus far from a legal mind?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of podcasts about this. I've read everything. I'm not all the way through the amended complaint because it came out at midnight.
Yeah.
But I've read all those, documents too. the most important thing for people to know about this case is that the things we see, like what's in the amended complaint, what's in the original complaint, and especially what's in his answer and counterclaims, is not the way court usually works.
See, that's what I was going to ask, because this reads like a pulp novel.
No, never. I mean, sometimes if you have a case, you'll put a couple of kind of, dramatic paragraphs in it, but you don't put your evidence in a complaint. You don't attach a 100-page timeline to your complaint.
But they did that to win the public, right?
Of course, they did it so that they could say to the judge, all we're putting online are publicly filed documents, which is kind of hard to quibble with. If it's a document that's filed in a court, it's public, right? Anybody could go online. There's a website called Pacer and get all the documents from this case if they're filed with a court. So the reason they did it and put all that stuff in the complaint and the answer was so that they could say, Your Honor, all we're doing is posting filed documents. That's it. This timeline was attached to our complaint. It's already been filed in court. It's a public document.
This Brian Friedman knows. I mean, he works.
Yes. And this is not his first rodeo.
No. He's been many cases, even in the Bravo realm. He has Bethany Frankel's Reality Reckoning case, so many cases, but it is very interesting because it is just like napalming social media with so much information that the public is not used to getting at. Like, I never thought I would be reading, collaboration emails from Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni about wardrobe.
Right. And I mean, I think they're killing it in the public opinion sphere. I mean, they're killing
Stomping them.
Yeah. Stomping it. And it really makes me wonder, like, what Blake Lively's folks thought they were doing when they, put out this complaint, which had clearly things out of context, which had, text messages.
Emojis taken out and all of these things. And they really, and by the way, that Baldoni stuff really shows you how that happened. Like, they took this sentence out and this emoji out, and it does become a different message.
It absolutely does. And from what I've read so far, I'm very suspicious about her amended complaint because it just seems really convenient that they're not willing to show any of the evidence or mention any of the witnesses' names in there. Now, that normally wouldn't happen, right? Normally, you wouldn't have to amend your complaint to put in more evidence. That's ridiculous. But we know why they're doing it. It's to try to win over public opinion, right? To try to have a better document that they can spit out to the public without ethical concerns. And to just have these anonymous people who felt uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is one of those words where, like, I could be uncomfortable because the heat is up.
Yes.
I could also be uncomfortable because someone is sexually harassing me. But I think my initial opinion is that they left themselves a lot of wiggle room to avoid, sanctions or to avoid getting called out for putting false things in a complaint. And that I'm not sure we'll ever see any of this. I'm not sure we'll ever hear.
That was the thing, is obviously, they have a tentative court date at like March of 2026, which I'm like, we have a whole nother year of this crap. Like, the world does not need another year of this. Because they're suing for 400 million plus damages. How do we actually get to a point where we don't take this to trial? Because I don't think Reynolds and Lively want to part with $400 million or anywhere near that. And they don't want to admit they're wrong.
Right. I mean, I don't know how anybody I don't think there's an off-ramp here, right? I mean, we know that 99% of federal cases settle, 90% of cases settle. Is
that true?
Oh, yeah. It's the vast majority of cases. Maybe it's 99% of civil cases in the Southern District. It's between 90 and 99%, depending on which court you're in. All cases settle, right? I mean, most cases settle. But I don't see the off-ramp for anyone. I have said, and I know people disagree with me because they say they don't want it to happen, and I don't want it to happen either. But I have said I think Baldoni would take a walk away at this point. He's crushed the sphere of public opinion. He's killing it in terms of, everybody thinks he's right and he's, the good guy. I think he would probably settle for a walk away, but she won't, because a walk away is basically her admitting that all of these allegations were fabricated.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing that's so hard for my brain to wrap around is to have her, like, is there a way that she truly believes she was being harassed? Like, we see all of this documentation, but that's also what I try to explain to people. That's collaboration. Like, I grew up an actor, and like, we all talk to each other weird. Like, it's like it's cringy. Like, we're not meant to be reading these emails and texts, but is there a way that she is telling some form of the truth? Because the other end of that spectrum is she set out deliberately to ruin this guy's life and career.
I absolutely think there's a possibility she's telling the truth. I think there's a possibility that she's telling the whole truth. And I think there's a possibility that she's telling the kind of truth. That's absolutely possible. It doesn't really feel like it from what we've seen so far, because the truth speaks for itself, right? If you have really good evidence that something is happening, you don't have to alter it. You don't have to take it out of context. You just give it. And, this is another case where I think motive, even though it's not really motive, but is going to be critical. Like, why would she do this?
Yeah.
That's the missing.
And how much was Ryan Reynolds? I mean, really, like, the online people really want to make Ryan Reynolds a central figure in this, controlling, and somebody that's built their career up from the ground up to like $1 billion guy, not just in film, but he's an advertising exec now and all of this stuff. Why would he throw his career away to ruin one person? Like, people are like, oh, it was insane jealousy because he saw them bonding. And how do you argue that in court? You can't, right?
No. I think my uneducated speculation.
Well, you're a little educated.
Yeah, okay, but uneducated about this, right? Educated about other stuff, right? And this is coming from the mother of the biggest Swiftie on the planet. So I dare not say anything negative about.
Yes, if Taylor has to take the stand, I'm never watching a Hollywood movie again. I refuse.
If Taylor has to take the stand, my daughter will be sitting in the courtroom, right? I mean, that's.
By the way, that's the new Eras tour, is to try to get a ticket to this Baldoni Lively.
Oh my God, it will be. So I dare not say anything bad about Taylor Swift, and this isn't bad, but I think that she's surrounded by a best friend and a husband who are like moguls, right? They do amazing things in so many areas, and she's like a dumb blonde actress who's just known for. And you see it in all the interviews they're showing now. Like, I just show up and smile and stand on my spot and look hot,
Yeah, that's what she said.
Was like, I want to be more. And I think she had these two people egging her on. And I don't really mean that in a negative way, but like building her up.
No, yeah, like, you're amazing. We love you.
You're awesome. Don't take no for an answer, because Taylor Swift doesn't have to take no for an answer ever, right? So don't take no for an answer. If he won't send you the dailies, ask again. If he won't let you rewrite the scene, just do it and give it to him,
Yeah. Well, but also, how many men in Hollywood have had that attitude through like the 100 years of film? Men all the time have done that, and it's succeeded at it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Taylor was saying, look at her song, The Man, right? I'm sure Taylor was saying to her, if you were a man, nobody would question this. Do it, None of those are bad things. But I think it just got, because it didn't kind of fall into place for her the way that her best friend and husband have managed to do it.
But just to not have the foresight that you've sent out so many text messages and emails that potentially they could use against you. That's the other thing that's confusing to me. If you are so meticulous and smart, how would you ever leave this? It's like a murderer leaving a trail of blood. How would you ever that's the part there are so many little things that I'm like, that's why I was not excited, but interested to read the amended complaint, because I want it to make sense. I want it, and I also don't want this man destroyed in the way that he, felt he was being destroyed, but also he's the director. There's a big studio behind him. He is not a wilting flower either. So yeah.
Yeah, he's not, but she clearly had the power in that relationship.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the difficult things for me, who does a lot of domestic violence cases, right? To try to argue that she was powerless in that situation really diminishes the kind of power imbalance, I think, in most of these sexual harassment, sexual assault cases. And, we know that she's controlling the lawyers 100%. Because we saw, a week or two ago, they sent a letter saying, please don't let Brian Friedman depose,
Taylor Swift.
Blake Lively. No, she said,
Blake Lively.
Else to depose me.
Oh, God, yeah.
I guarantee you no lawyer suggested or approved writing that letter. Because everybody knows you don't get to pick which lawyer deposes your client. They get to pick. I'm sure she said, I'm not letting him depose me. So figure it out, lawyers, right? And I think that may be what happened with the amended complaint. Is she said to them, we're amending the complaint and putting out all our best evidence. And they were like, but we don't have good evidence. And so she was like, well, I have a friend who will say that she was uncomfortable. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of like
but to your point, uncomfortable. Like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable every day of my life. Or like, I mean, that is such a weird, odd word. But that there's also this thing of like, was there actual official complaints that Sony and Wayfarer Studios were aware of? Now, if there were complaints from two other women that went through proper channels, even though things can happen without going through proper channels, that would really, I would imagine, help her case to some degree.
Yeah, I wouldn't even need them to go through proper channels. I just want to see something that there was a complaint by anybody before things hit the fan. Because, I was not the one that kind of made this point. I've lost track of who. But, if you're being harassed at work, you're texting somebody about it.
Yes.
And I know that we can't, they wouldn't want to produce her communications with Ryan because they're privileged with spouses. But if I'm being sexually harassed at work, my sister's hearing about it. She's texting me every day saying like, how is it today? Like, how are you feeling today? Like, I love you. My best friend is hearing about it. I mean, at a minimum, my mom's probably hearing about it, right? In addition to my husband, where that would be so easy to show contemporaneous text messages. Like, look at this 6 months or whatever it was, 6 weeks, where I was complaining every day about how uncomfortable I was. And everybody was saying to me like, you know what, just hang in there. And then I said, and today he told me that I looked sexy and it was so humiliating. Where is all that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, completely. And that's why it's so interesting to read her complaint. And then his, like by the end, I was like, I would have subscribed to this like, it was, I don't know, like some kind of new, like I would have paid money to continue reading this because it was so just like a peek behind the curtain. And I'm so curious because a lot of Hollywood has weird instances like this. So I also wonder what this is going to do for movie production in general. And I don't mean that, I truly think this affects things because it's this peek behind the curtain that has made me completely forget about the movie or the message of the movie entirely.
Totally. And I think for the public, for us, maybe not for you because you have experience in this industry, but I think the one of the missing pieces for us is how do you really shoot a scene where people are kissing? Like, is it really inappropriate if you like snuggle against them? Maybe it is. I'm not saying it isn't. Is that improv? Is it not improv? I mean, we're going to need to kind of hear more about that and hear more about like, that one video that came out didn't seem very inappropriate to me, right?
Well, you clearly saw him directing and then going into actor mode and then directing, and you also heard her say things like, or she snuggled up again, and this is all just kind of like the way that this artistry of film is made. But if it is making somebody uncomfortable, that has to be communicated. That's why there's intimacy coordinators now. So the movies have changed in a lot of ways, but to have this much evidence going against what her initial complaint was really eye-opening and very confusing. And people seem to be at like a fever, like they show up at SNL 50 and it's like, how dare they show up at SNL 50?
I mean,
which is wild that they showed up.
It's wild that they showed up. And a man whose wife has been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted by another man is not joking about it. Like,
well, I did, because he said, Amy and Tina said, hey, how are you doing? And he said, good. Why? What have you heard? Like, so that was the joke. So I wasn't as offended as other people, but I'm also not a woman. So I don't know if that's different.
I just can't imagine making light of a situation where you're in the middle of it. If it was 3 years ago, it's one thing to be like, well, you know how I've been doing, because it's kind of like too soon. But they're like right in the middle of this.
Oh, it took me out of it completely. I was like, oh no.
Right. And so that was kind of ugh to me.
Well, yeah, even if Baldoni had been at SNL, I would have had the same feeling. I would have been like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there's so much more to come, I think, in this case.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, listen, this has been fantastic. I could keep talking to you for hours, and this is why people tune in day after day on Hot Bench. You can check your local listings. You've got 2,000 episodes to catch up on if you have not watched yet. And I hope I never have to use you for any kind of divorce proceeding. I hope I never have to visit you except for like another interview at some point down the line. But how do we support you besides supporting the show?
That's it. Watch Hot Bench.
That's it.
go on our social media, comment. I mean, we've got a lot of the clips from the shows on social media, on YouTube. Like, get into the show.
Yeah, guys, the website, you can actually submit to be on the show. If you have a case, if you have a cup of coffee that you need to pay back for, you can submit on the website, which I'll put in the show notes. But I hope you'll come back. So I know you're very busy and very powerful. So thank you for doing this. This was just excellent.
Love to. We'll do it. This was great.
Okay.